All right, everybody. Thanks for joining in once again. This episode, we are talking about. Well, technically, I think this is the first new movie of 2021 that we've talked about. Even though technically this is a 2020 movie, this movie that we're talking about this episode, it just is one of those movies that kind of it came out of nowhere, exploded onto the scene. There was a ton of hype for it a couple of I don't know what, a month ago or so, I think, before we're recording this is when I watched it, and that's when I suggested it to you, and then you were like, well, hell, let's do an episode about it. So we're talking about 2020's Psycho Goreman.
I had no idea about this film. I think you mentioned it or something happened. And so you brought it up, and I didn't even know it wasn't even on my radar until you said something about it.
Yeah, it was just one day on the forums and on Instagram and stuff, it just started popping up like, hey, did anybody see this? This was great. Anybody watch
What
this yet? This was awesome. And then all of a sudden, I was like, hell, everybody else is checking it out. I should probably watch it. And then I was like, damn, that was awesome. Dude, you should check this out.
Thinking back, the only thing I could think of I might have seen something real quickly on, like a blip about it, was on like the Bloody Disgusting news feed. Other than that, I don't. And then even that, I'm not 100% sure I saw that.
Yeah, it was just weird. It was just out of nowhere. Just everybody was talking about it. And so, of course, here we are because, the two of us are always on top of everything that is new in the media, in the mainstream. We're always on top of everything that is current. If it's from the mid 80s, that is. But
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was just one of those things. I mean, it comes across or it happens every once in a while. It happened with Wolf Cop, was sort of that way, just kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That was one. What was another one that I was just thinking of earlier? That was another one that was same thing, just kind of happened out of, it was Tucker and Dale versus Evil. That was another one, even though that was like a theatrical release, though, I think. But
So was this like a Shudder exclusive or something?
it's not even on Shudder yet, but it is a Shudder exclusive. That's the funny thing about it. It's like a Shudder exclusive, but it's not on Shudder till like May.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I got it off of Amazon.
Yeah, it's on all the video on demand places, but I think it's May is when it comes to Shudder. But yeah, I don't know if there was many people that were expecting this movie. It was just one of these things, like I said, all of a sudden people were like talking about it because it was available, and then I watched it and I was like, damn, that's kind of right up my alley. Cool.
Yeah, it's funny because it kind of reminded me of a film that we had reviewed not too long ago, The Gate. I mean, obviously not the same type of film. This one's far more graphic and all of that, but the kind of the same sort of concept, I guess you'd say, to some degree. Like this other dimension, world where these demons live and all of that, and just kind of had that vibe. The kids and all that stuff.
Yeah, I could see that a little bit. Sure.
I mean, not like totally like, not like. I mean, this one obviously is like far more. It's like an R-rated film, and that The Gate was more like a kid-friendly thing, but just kind of that same sort of concept, I guess.
Yeah, and there wasn't a dead dog through half of this movie.
Yeah. No.
I still don't understand what that was about in The Gate. Who thought that was a good idea?
Oh, no kidding.
Hey, let's make this family-friendly movie, but let's kill the family dog, but then let's keep him in the movie.
Yeah, and then have the kids drag him around everywhere. But yeah, the funny thing about this movie, when it first started, I thought it was going to be kind of like a fantasy film or something, like a sci-fi fantasy, Lord of the Rings type of thing or whatever, because it starts off like in the other dimension or whatever, the other world,
Right.
Hell or wherever they are. And I had kind of in my head thought that, oh, this is going to be some strange, almost sci-fi film. And then all of a sudden it kicks into this these kids in their backyard and all that. And I was like, oh, okay, I see where they're going with this. This is kind of like a Stranger Things maybe or something like that. Because that seemed to be such a popular thing these past few years.
What it made me think of when I was getting ready for this episode was actually kind of what we were talking about during the gate, which is kind of weird. We're bringing it up twice during this episode. But one of the things that I had said during the gate episode was that I wanted to find a movie that was from my youth that I hadn't really ever connected with in my youth. And when we watched The Gate, I was like, oh, maybe this is going to be it. This is going to be it. And it wasn't at all. But this movie kind of always reminds me, or not always, but when I think of this movie now, it's like that feeling that I was hoping to get when I watched The Gate was the feeling that I got when I watched this movie, even though this movie's from 2020. This movie is like, that's kind of what I wanted when I watched The Gate, was I wanted what this movie was, and just something like, oh man, that was awesome. But I mean, The Gate was not that movie at all. But if that made any sense.
Totally. No, I totally get what you're saying with that. Yeah, that was kind of what I was hoping for too with The Gate, something a little bit more like just a better film overall. And then this one's a little bit more tongue in cheek, I think, than The Gate was trying to be a little bit more serious. But yeah, this is kind of like gosh, I don't even know where to put this one. I mean, it's sort of like a modern horror / comedy, almost along the lines of Wolf Cop, maybe. I mean, not quite, but I don't know, kind of in that direction. If you sort of think of it, in terms of if you look at it as a comedy.
Yeah, I could definitely see like it's in more in that realm. Or another one too that sort of in like the goofy silliness that the Psycho Goreman fell into was a movie that we talked about. Oh man, I don't even know what 4 years ago now, something like that. But the Final Girls.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah,
like goofy horror comedy. Yeah, this all kind of falls into that sort of category where it's weird to think of when you think of horror movies, but it's like just kind of like a feel good horror movie.
It is. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's kind of along the lines of those type of films, and it's funny too. I think we talked about this in the past about like modern practical effects, and this is one of those movies that utilizes a lot of modern practical effects. It's like they veer away from the CGI stuff, which is awesome. And it's funny because like back in the day, like in the 70s and 80s, the special effects always kind of look different each movie, right? Like you think like Dawn of the Dead, and you think Tom Savini, and he used like that weird like orange blood in those scenes, and like the skin was like this stretchy rubbery stuff. And you compare that to like the special effects in like I don't know, like an early 80s movie like Basket Case, and it just seemed like they were always sort of different depending on who was doing the effects. Whereas this film, it's like whatever they're using nowadays for special effects, like it's like they all are using across the board the same stuff. Like that scene with the double decapitation in this one, it reminded me of like the Evil Dead remake, and then or Wolf Cops special effects, or the recent movie I just recently saw was that new Nicolas Cage film, with the animatronics and the gore in that film reminded me of this. It's like it's kind of like everything's universal now. There's no different groups doing their own thing. They're all using the same stuff.
So now I'm gonna have to cut that Nick Cage bit out because otherwise we're gonna be like, you guys need to talk about that movie.
Oh.
But maybe fuck it. Maybe I'll leave it in there and fuck you guys. We're not going to talk about that movie. How you like that?
There you go. But yeah, it's kind of got that modern gore effects, and like some of the other ones we did too. Some of the more modern Oh, Banana Splits. We did that one, a while back. Kind of the same deal. It's like they use the same thing. And do you kind of get you see where I'm coming from with that, or
Yeah. The longer that it stays that way, you have to kind of just be like, you almost got to get to a point where you're just kind of like, yeah, that's the way it is now.
mm-hmm.
I mean, it's actually not a bad thing though, really, because then you don't have the one. I mean, there is the downside of that is anytime you watch a movie with practical effects, you can almost guarantee you're going to know what stuff is going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's not very often that you see a movie that has practical effects where the movie gets over and you go, whew, man, those practical effects in that movie were shit. Man, they were bad.
Yeah.
It's anytime the practical effects are in a movie anymore, you're like, whoa, hey, cool, they had practical effects.
Yeah.
That was
You're
cool.
so excited about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's weird too. This past weekend I watched Star Wars The Force Awakens. And and that's another movie where they said, like the prequels were all CGI. So with the sequels, they were like, okay, we got to go back and trying to, go with the practical effects with the creatures and all that. And let's do costumes and rubber masks and animatronics. And when I was watching that scene where Finn like runs into the camp in Jakku and he's like, he needs a drink of water because he's been walking through the desert, and he starts drinking water in this big well, and there's this like big giant like hippo looking alien thing drinking in there with him. And like when you look at that thing, and like not only that, but all the other monsters on that planet that are like, rubber creatures or whatever, they have this sort of new look to them too, where it's like, oh yeah, that looks like the way they would have done it in, you think of some other modern movie. It's like the same kind of stuff. Whereas when you go back to the original Star Wars movie, you watch like, episode 4 and the scenes with the creatures in the cantina, whatever. It's just kind of like, well, that's just for that movie. That's what they're using. And it's like, it doesn't look like anything else you've seen, like, or maybe slightly like another movie, but for the most part, it's, that team of special effects people kind of like, or you think of Jabba the Hutt, and 1983 Return of the Jedi, and it's like that creature has its own sort of thing to it, like, whoever put it together, it was their own materials and concept. Whereas I don't even know if I'm like making sense with this, but it just seemed like the Force Awakens, the creatures were things that you've seen in other movies of that time period. Like, like you could tell like they're using the same materials and the same equipment to pull off those effects.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what it is though. People you don't have to make it anymore. You just buy it.
True. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. You don't have to make the fake, it's not Tom Savini and Dawn of the Dead trying to figure out why his orange latex house paint that he brought in for the shoot doesn't look like blood.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But, now you just buy the fake blood. You don't have to try to mix it up yourself. Or
no, that makes sense.
Yeah. Or the latex stuff. You just buy it. You don't have to like, oh, I don't know, let's try to mix this up. It's you just buy it now. I think that's where that all comes from. It's just everything's mass produced anymore.
I think that makes sense. Yeah, because like the blood in all these films, and I guess like going back to the horror thing, like the Evil Dead remake and all the gore that's in that film, like the latex and the way the blood looks, that's like looks like everything you see now. Like when it comes like this movie we're talking about, Psycho Goreman and Wolf Cop, it's all the same materials. Like, yeah, like you said, they're not mixing it up in their garage before doing the film.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I mean, it's cool, but at the same time, while it looks more realistic and stuff, now you lose that little bit of magic to it when you could tell, like, ooh, you could see the little nuances and stuff, and you'd be like, oh, that's Tom Savini's work there, or that,
yeah,
that's his work over here, or this is Stan Winston's work over here, or whatever the case might be, and where you can, in nowadays, it's just like you don't even know anymore, and it's not even so much you don't even know anymore. you know, half the time on some of these movies when they are, I mean, look at like the Marvel movies and stuff, it's not like they have, you don't have a special effects guy on the thing anymore. It's like a whole team of people now, which I mean, I
Yeah.
know that were teams of people on the movies back in the day too, but I mean, it's not like, you had 5 people on a movie set now where they'll have like whatever 100 or something.
Right.
I mean, it's just the movie itself is so much bigger
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah,
stuff now
absolutely.
too. But it's just crazy. The effects in this, I thought, they were pretty cool. The one thing I wasn't sure about when I got done with this movie, and I went online and then I was like, okay, well, that doesn't help either because people were kind of on the fence about it, it seemed to, or other people were one way or the other. But the little girl in this movie, when the movie was over, still was never 100% sure, and I'm still not sure to this day if she was, if to me, if I found her annoying or not. But at the same time, I kind of think that was the point. Like, I think the point was that she was just going to get just the edge where you're going to be like, oh, just shut up. But you don't quite get to that. And
Yeah.
then, and it just kind of kept going back and forth with that.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yes. The kids were okay in this. I think they were a little underwhelming. We didn't have quite the chemistry of some other films with, kids in the casting. Um, obviously like, I don't know, I'm thinking like Monster Squad, or something like that where you just really memorable. Like the kids in this one were kind of hit and miss, I think.
You want to know something funny about the Monster Squad? Not necessarily funny, but I was looking at something the other day and I was reading an article about the Monster Squad and I was doing some digging on some of the people that were in there and stuff. But the kids that were in the Monster Squad, I mean, it makes sense, but the kids in the Monster Squad, they're our age. Like, I mean,
Damn.
which makes
That's
sense,
weird.
but I mean, they were our age when that movie came out, but it's just kind of funny when you don't see these people or hear of these people at all. And then all of a sudden you're like looking at this thing like, oh, wait, damn, that guy is like 45. Damn.
Yeah, crazy.
I know.
Yeah, so bizarre.
Oh, man. Too funny.
So overall, what would you say about this film? Did you walk away liking this one, or what was your take?
Yeah, I'll say the one thing I'll say, or what I will say about this is me and you were talking about this before we started recording, and we live in a world nowadays where everybody has countless streaming options available to them, or you have cable or you have over the air channels or whatever the case might be. You have YouTube and all this stuff, but you have just endless amounts of stuff to watch.
Oh yeah.
I don't know about you, but me in particular, I cannot just sit down and just thumb through stuff and find something to watch if I don't have something to watch. I rarely actually find anything to watch on any of the pay services that I use. What usually ends up happening is if I'm like, oh, maybe I'll watch something. And I'll sit down and I'll flip through crap for like an hour. And then I'll just end up on YouTube and watching YouTube videos. So half the time, if I don't have something in mind to watch and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll watch something anymore, I just know that like, oh, it's time to watch some YouTube. So I'll
Yeah.
just turn on some YouTube. This particular movie, it was one of those rare cases that a bunch of people were talking about it online. I was like, huh, let me check that out. And I turned it on without knowing what it was about, really. I didn't really look into much about it. I just knew a bunch of people were raving about it. And within a couple of minutes, I was like, all right, this is going to be good. And it got over. And I texted you pretty much immediately and said, dude, this movie was great. You should check it out. And I posted about it, I think, on a couple of forums on Facebook about how cool the movie was. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And yeah, like I said before, I would say this one would fall right up there along the lines of like Wolf Cop and The Final Girls and Tuckerdale versus Evil and some of those other just funny horror comedies of the past 10, 15 years that, when you're in the mood for something silly, like, oh, hey, check this out. So it's a thumbs up for me for sure.
Yeah, I went into this one not knowing what to really expect, and I'll say this, like I didn't, it wasn't like I'm not a huge horror comedy guy, and I'm more like horror that's kind of plays it more straight. There's obviously some really good comedy stuff out there, like especially like Wolf Cop and things like that. And this one was kind of like pretty unique, in that sense. It also was kind of like kind of a throwback in a way. It reminded me of like something you would have gotten like in the late '80s. So like we were talking about The Gate and Monster Squad and all that stuff.
Right.
So overall, I will give it a thumbs up just because I think it was for what it was entertaining, and it's probably not one I'm ever going to go revisit or purchase the Blu-ray, but at the same time, if you're looking for something to watch, it's definitely worth a view.